Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 239 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, Camille Stell joins us and brings our four-part series on marketing to a conclusion. A lot of amazing information and wisdom that has been shared by our guests over the last 3 episodes, and today buckle up because Camille has got an amazing overview about how to practically implement referral marketing into your law firm. Uli Schweister, who was on episode 236 and kicked off this 4-part marketing series, also spoke about referral marketing, and it is absolutely with intention that half of the episodes, 2 of the 4, are based around referral marketing, because referral marketing is the evergreen marketing that can drive your law firm into the future and allow you to have sustained growth and leads coming in all the time. I mean, referral marketing is what is going to allow your firm to become next level. So getting it implemented early, often, and consistently is incredibly important. Camille's got some great tips for communicating with referrals, how to choose where you are going to network. So just an incredible thoughts for us to reflect on that are offered by Camille on today's episode. Camille serves as the president and CEO of Lawyers Mutual Consulting. She is a frequent author and speaker on topics of ethics and professionalism, succession planning, and marketing and business development, as well as trends for law firms going into the future. She works with lawyers and law firms in business development and marketing, coaching, strategic planning, and succession planning. So super excited to have Camille on the podcast. Camille spoke at the Freedom Fighter Summit in October on how to create a law firm, how to build a law firm that can be sold. Incredible talk. Was also a part of our highly energetic marketing panel at the summit. Really hit it off with Camille there on Thursday and really enjoyed this conversation with Camille about referral-based marketing, and hope you do as well. Camille, here we are talking about one of our favorite joint topics, which is referral-based marketing, networking. It's really, like, to me, it's the most important aspect of building your business is building a referral system. If you want to talk about advertising, marketing, branding, all those things are great. But without a referral-based practice, you do not have a business that is built for the long haul. So I am super pumped to talk about this particular aspect of marketing. So really excited about it.
Well, thanks for having me on the program, Jake. I'm very excited too, and I completely agree with you. The referral network is really, it's the keys to the kingdom, and it's where all the magic, and it's where the fun.
Oh, it is totally. Yeah, it is. It's so much fun. I think that's one of the things that is, a lot of marketing can feel like a chore. It's how do we figure this out? It can feel like a drag, like, man, I've got to spend this money on pay-per-click because we're trying to build out this new practice area or go into this new space. But yeah, referral marketing, networking is just so much fun. So with that being said, this is like a joint passion, something that, I think can be fun. Obviously, you feel the same way. What is it that, like, leaves a bad taste in, lawyers' mouths when they think about a networking event? What's the turnoff when somebody says it doesn't work? What is your answer to that?
Yes, I think people go into networking, and one, they get kind of a icky feeling because they say, "Oh, I'm just going to be asking people for things," and so
Yes.
that feels bad. Um,
Where do you
uh,
think that comes from? I mean, in terms, why do you think people kind of see networking as like a 30-second elevator pit, like speed dating? Why do you think there's that mentality behind it? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think people are not accustomed to thinking of networking as building relationship
Mhm.
and having reciprocity in relationship. So I feel like the better I get to know you, certainly I can ask you for things, but I can also offer you things, right? I can refer people I know to you. I can ask you for an introduction, but I can make an introduction for you. I can go to your conference and take in your content, but I can also offer to speak and to give something back. And so I think when people can understand that true networking is relationship building and good networking is about reciprocity, then that feeling of I don't want to take from people, be indebted to people, have to ask for a favor, then I think they can see more value in it.
Yeah, I think, we've always had this like thought process around referral marketing and referral relationships at our law firm as being the concierge. And I feel like for clients, when they come in on a DWI, it's amazing like how many different other people are involved when you get a DWI. You have to go talk to, somebody that does an alcohol assessment. It could change your insurance. So you might have to speak with your current insurance adjuster or somebody else that sells insurance. You might have to get an ignition interlock system. You might have to go for like a longer treatment program. So like one of the things that we saw as like a huge value point was building these relationships for other individuals. And a lot of times like there's not really like a return in terms of maybe somebody that works at an ignition interlock company, that has a friend will be like, hey, you should go talk to, the Minnick Law team. But generally speaking, they're kind of on the back end of the problem and not so much like somebody gets a DWI and the first person they call is an ignition interlock company. Like that's just not how it works. But if we're referring, these clients to other people that can be really helpful in these other areas, to me, it's like that's a value add for us. So even in that like kind of giving or reciprocity, like the more you become this connected person and somebody that might be able to help this friend or this client or this other legal professional in the arena, that's like a humongous value add. That is a differentiator for us. Like it's like one of the main things I feel like we're selling is just here's the people that you need to talk to. Because as a client, you don't want to have to make any more phone calls about this embarrassing and difficult situation than necessary. So it's like, give me the list. Tell me what I need to do. Let's offload that problem as well. So I think that there's so much value in that.
Yes, it's like a holistic solution, right? It's not just let me put on my blinders and take care of your matter before court. It is a holistic view. And I think every area of practice has that. And I know, your area and your listeners are probably most focused on criminal defense. But, thinking about other areas of practice, those mental health providers in family law, those financial advisors in, estate planning. When you have a strong relationship, it's as though you have vetted all of these other
Mhm.
resources for people. And that's huge to your point.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's just such a big value add, in building a referral network. I think maybe that's one of the places that, uh, you know, new lawyer, somebody that's been practicing for 10 years. I think that that's one of the more overwhelming aspects of referral marketing is can feel time consuming and like this mountainous task to try to kind of build a network. So in terms of kind of first steps to building a referral network, what are some of the things that you coach lawyers to work on when they're thinking about that?
I like to refer to age and stage networking. You don't, you can start where you are. And you can start with people you know. Um, and you don't have to think of, oh my gosh, I'm maybe just 3 years into practice, but I've got to go out and meet all the most important people in the industry, right? Like how wonderful for you to build relationships with other folks your age and stage who are growing their careers along the way. There's certainly opportunity, right, for mentoring and for people to get connected with people who have more experience and who've done more in the arena. But when you can build a network that grows with you, I think that there's just so much value in that, particularly the earlier you are in your career, because sometimes it's not that you don't have the answer, but having six other people that you can reach out to might help you come to the answer quicker. When you've been doing this for 15 years, 25 years, yeah, there are questions that are come up that you don't know the answer to, but for the most part, you kind of got it. And so I think this can be comforting to people. Another thing I think people should do as they're building that referral network, you mentioned it earlier, is the elevator pitch, and that some folks think of that as like the whole component of networking, but really what you want to do is you want to be able to tell someone very quickly the legal problem you solve, right? It's not like, oh, how can I craft, the most beautiful words or, portray my law firm in the most perfect way. Really, just you're thinking about it as who are the people I help and what do I help them accomplish? And that's your elevator pitch. And then I also think it's extraordinarily important to be able to share your news. And by that, I mean, what is it that I can give folks as examples of how I help people? And that's not where you say, my client Tom, who I represented in court last week, but you say things like, what keeps my clients up at night is X, and here's how I solve for that. Or most people who come to see a criminal defense attorney, not only are they worried about the specific ticket, but they're worried about the ramifications for work. They're worried about the impact of this on the cost of their insurance. They worry about this in connection with the last two tickets they got. And so when you can talk to people about, here's what my clients worry about, and here's how I solve it, that is what will resonate with people. And they'll say, oh, I need that service, or my sister needs that service, or my friend needs that service.
Yeah, I love that. I think that the age and stage thing is really something that kind of resonates with me because I think again when you go to a networking event, it can feel like sometimes and this is maybe actually not as much currently, but it can feel sometimes like almost like an exchange of business cards would do the same thing. Like, right, why are we spending all of this time? Um, you know, uh, uh, I'm trying to go out and get business, let people know what I do, learn what other people do. But if you approach it from that standpoint of, what can I learn from this group that will help me improve my business, it really kind of puts that need to share what you do, it downgrades that. Like you don't have to like come away having earned, 3 referral sources. Like that's not how you grade it. It's like, did I take away from this something that could help me improve my business or set up a better conversation the next go around, or maybe help me improve my skills in the courtroom. So I think that the agent stage thing really stuck with me, because I think if you go in and kind of ask, questions about, hey, what are you guys doing in terms of hiring? How are you trying to solve uh this aspect of local service ads? Are you guys using these? What have you seen in the courtroom? How are you kind of using this technique in cross-examination? Lawyers love talking about this kind of stuff, so I think if you can go in with that attitude and try to bring out some of those topics, then it feels again less like this salesy space, and you walk away, having absolutely kind of got like max value out of that experience.
Yeah. I think another challenge that people have, or reason they don't like networking, is they don't understand how to create strategy around networking
Hmm.
and then follow through that strategy with intentionality. And so your example is the perfect one. Like you might go to an event and you could pass out some business cards and chat with a few people and kind of check it off your list, like, oh, I networked today. But if you look at each event you're going to and you say, what should my goals be for this event?
Hmm.
And you might recognize that this is an event where I could pick up clients. So, how will I do that? What is my goal? Um, Versus maybe the bar luncheon, where your goal is probably not to pick up clients, but perhaps referral sources, mentoring, talking about, who's doing what in the courtroom that's working well these days. And so you adjust your strategy for each different kind of event. And then you set some goals, at the potential client event. If I leave tonight and I've had 3 solid conversations, have exchanged information, these folks know clearly what I do, and they're able to articulate that, maybe that's enough. Or your goal might be, to connect with somebody where you could offer some sort of educational opportunity or sponsorship, right? Like, I could get clients by sponsoring the local community softball game. So the Parks and Rec director is here tonight. Why don't I meet them and have a conversation? That bar luncheon, you might say, I don't have a great estate planning lawyer in my referral network. Today, I am going to find and meet an estate planning lawyer at the local bar lunch. And I may have to ask 10 different people before I find that person, but that's my goal. I'm going to leave here and I'm going to have met an estate planning lawyer and set up a coffee to see if we would be a good referral source for one another.
That's awesome. I think that having a plan going into it is such a, again, it's simple, but I don't think I've ever heard of anybody doing that, having goals going into a networking opportunity or event. And that is huge, because yeah, I mean, if you're trying to come away, even in terms of like having a scorecard. I am a person that really fails when it comes to tracking, important metrics. And so fortunately, Gint, one of my partners, that's definitely like one of his strong suits. We have, a couple of other people at the office that are also like really good at looking at the numbers and saying like, is this thing working or is it not? But in terms of like walking away from an event with more than just a gut feeling of like, that felt like it went well, or man, that seemed like a waste of time. If you have like a goals list going into it, then it's pretty easy to tell like, hey, did I accomplish the goals that I set out to? Or if I didn't, why not? Like, what was this the wrong event? Was it, just I didn't, kind of initiate contact the way that I should? Like, there's just such an easier way to kind of determine success. So I love that, because that to me is like one of the things that can just feel so frustrating about a networking event is being able to score it. And so I think that the
Mhm.
goals really give you that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes it for people who don't love networking, I think it makes it feel more manageable,
Yes.
right? Like
What am I
bite-sized
supposed to be
goals.
doing here?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Where, you and I might walk in and see a sea of people and think, "Oh my gosh, this is heaven."
It's gonna be
Someone
fun.
else is going to see that same sea of people. And if they have three fingers up, three things they want to accomplish, right? The whole night can be more manageable for them.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah, in terms of any, and you've already mentioned a couple of them, but I just think that that's such a powerful tool for network. Is there anything specific, outside of trying to create like a specific, contact within a practice area or anything along those lines? Is there anything else that you can kind of think of that would be like a good goal for that space?
Yeah, so I think every lawyer needs to have a certain number of folks in their referral network. When you think about the people that ask you for help, your family, your friends, your faith community, what they're looking for is right, a family lawyer, an estate planning lawyer, a small business lawyer.
Hmm.
Those are some that immediately come to mind. So maintaining those folks in your referral network is important. So if you haven't done that yet, that's a great set of goals, I think, to work around. Who are the key people I need in my referral network? And how do I build that out? And you might work on that for a whole year, right? You might identify the places in your network, and so that could be those outside vendors that you talked about. It could be other lawyers. It could be other providers of sort, whether it's the crisis help folks or whoever, and build out just a very simple plan. I'm not talking three spreadsheets and 5 pages long, but just build out a plan and then work all year towards filling in the referral people. The other goal I like to work around is thinking about marketing metrics. We know that it often takes 12 to 15 touches or 18 to 24 months to turn someone into a client. And so, one place that we have unrealistic expectations is when we walk into the event, we have a great conversation, and we don't know why they don't call us the next day. It's because they don't need us the next day. But if they don't need us until 12 months from now, how do we stay top of mind? And so creating a calendar where you have a process for working these referral sources, right? So, contact one is we met at the event and exchanged business cards. I'm going to leave there and I'm going to add them to LinkedIn. Contact two. I'm going to put them on my newsletter mailing list and holiday card list. Contact three. I'm going to schedule coffee. Contact four. I'm going to introduce them to someone in my circle I think they should meet. Contact five. And that's happening over the next 6 to 12 months. But if I'm not strategic about that process, I'm going to forget that. And they're going to forget me along the way. And when I turn it into a process, then those three business cards I picked up that night, boom, boom, boom. I am following the same process for everyone. And so I don't forget to have coffee with these folks because I've scheduled it, I've got it on my calendar. They're getting my newsletter. When I sponsor a table at the chamber event in the spring, I'm going to invite all my newest connections to sit with me as guests. And so I really turned this into a smooth, well-run process that works for me all year long.
That's huge. Yeah, I love that. I think, the key to success on these type of relationships is having them be systematic. And again, I think some people think, well, that takes the fun out of it, or it takes like the personality out of it. But I just think we all get so busy that if we're not intentional, that the alternative is just that we kind of let that relationship go to the wayside. And especially if you're trying to kind of build relationships with people that are part of a network that's helpful to your clients and not somebody that you would just specifically be hanging out with on any random weekend. It's like you have to build in some of that follow up and just point of reminder that, hey, we're just trying to still establish the relationship. I think that in this like world of immediate response, it's a very easy thing to kind of look at like pay per click, really overvalue pay per click and kind of immediate advertising, because it's like, I need a client now. Oh, look, I got a client now. But when you are focused on the long game, whether it's through kind of building up organically your website, collecting reviews week after week after week, building a referral network, that is really much more long game focused. If you're only about like, how can I make the most money in the next 12 months, then maybe you would kind of overemphasize, this kind of immediate response advertising versus, how can I build up my practice over the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. There's a very different strategy that is involved in that. And so I love that idea that, just because you're not getting a call from this, seemingly great referral partner a month down the road, doesn't mean that that's not going to be like one of the best relationships that you have for your firm over the course of the next decade.
Yeah. And some of that I think too helps you get better clients.
Yes.
Than, maybe clients that you can problem solve better with, or that fit the type of work that you want to do. So that immediate client that comes in today, yes, it's definitely going to pay the bill. But the ones that you kind of nurture over time, those often turn into the best sort of relationships.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really it's powerful, because I think that the more that you are able to like spend that time again helping a client find the right person in whatever they're looking for, whether that's again like a kind of third party person involved in your own specific line of work, like an alcohol assessor or treatment provider, or something that's outside of your practice area altogether. I think that just you can kind of see it from your own vantage point of what does this look like from the client side of things to kind of be led to this other attorney. And so often there's such gratitude expressed by the client and being kind of given this referral source, especially if it's somebody that is really good at what they do. And so, I always say that like if you're going to make a referral, do it to somebody that you trust. Like that we have the people that we trust to send cases to, and if I don't know anybody, then I'll just give them a lawyer directory, because it's kind of like I don't really want to almost like put our name behind this random person off of the internet, because I don't know whether or not they do good work. But you can see like the appreciation from the client perspective of getting this good good recommendation. And there's so many areas in life where that's just the case. Like you have somebody that recommends you to this great mechanic. You have somebody that recommends you to this, amazing hairdresser, whatever it might be. And it's like
Mhm.
you've got to almost experience it to understand, oh, that's like what we're receiving. This is not a blind lead. This is somebody that's like come in, with that trust relationship already kind of starting in the positive.
Yes, yes, agreed.
Eh,
Um, I also think that we underestimate the value of the long term.
A hundred percent.
That's just something as it's sort of a society, we've come to appreciate quick, fast, immediate. And often, quick, fast, and immediate works. But when we slow down and develop these relationships, you really do see a much higher return and it lasts for a much longer time.
Yeah, I was just reading in Scaling Up. So that's one of the main like books that we're using in the Freedom Fighters book club. And Vern Harnish in there kind of basically says like a lot of people underestimate what they can do in a decade and overestimate how much they can do in a year. And I think that whatever kind of gap exists on that front is actually getting deepened. I think that like the belief of what you can do in a year, and it's one of those things where I think so many lawyers that are just starting their practice feel so discouraged by kind of the lack of traction in the first 12 months, first
Mhm,
6 months. It's like, man, this is not what I pictured. And so that again, just overestimation of you see all of these other people that seem to have like these great, you know, flowing practices. And it's like, why can't I do that? And on the flip side, I think most people that have been at it for 10 years look around and are like, man, I can't believe, without maybe even without being intentional about it, what my referral network looks like. I mean, it's just,
mhm,
kind of almost part of the part of the value of sticking around for a long time is that you kind
mhm.
of organically build that up, even if you're not trying. So I 100% agree that there's way too much focus on the kind of short term.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of kind of, one of the nuanced ways, and we've talked a little bit in this series about kind of social media and kind of how to use that for various marketing aspects. But in terms of networking, with the development of social media, how do you see that kind of changing how people network, and in what way can social media be a tool for growing a referral network?
I've seen folks have a lot of success with a variety of social media outlets. I think LinkedIn is probably one of the more popular and certainly an easy tool if you take it beyond just I have a profile and I'm connecting with people.
Yes.
But if you know and I think it's fine to share on social media accomplishments. I'm so excited about speaking here or, the three lawyers in our firm won best lawyers. I think that's great. But what I love to see people do is tell me who they are on LinkedIn. Tell me what their values are and tell me what is important and impactful to them in their law practice. And so I think a lot of lawyers are doing a really good job of that. There is a lawyer friend of mine in the Triangle area, and her name is Venus Lyles. And Venus is she's an entrepreneur at heart. And so as she has developed her law practice, she serves entrepreneurial clients very early in the process. These are folks that often don't have a lot of money for legal services. And so you can look at her LinkedIn profile and you can see she does scholarship programs. She does incubator programs. She works particularly to help minorities and perhaps other groups that might not have access to legal services get access. And it might be, through a group that she's working with. And so I love that. I know more about who she is as a person because of the work she does, but I also know more about the types of clients she recommends. Like if I've got a friend with a, 10-year-old business who's looking for a full service law firm to, take them to, the $100 million mark, that's not her
Right,
passion and it's
right.
not who she serves every day. And I like that. I like knowing that. That helps me do a better job. So I think things like that are really impactful. I really enjoyed during COVID seeing how Brian King in Western North Carolina, how he did these Facebook Live chats
Yes.
where he talked to his family law clients, not just like you 10 people are my client, you have access to this program. But if you are in earshot of this Facebook Live, let me tell you what a stay at home order from the governor means. Let me tell you how that might apply to pick up and drop off of your kids over the next few weeks. So you didn't have to be his client to benefit from that, right? That was a public service announcement. That was community outreach. But man, if I were in that community and after COVID, I was thinking, I need to explore divorce
Yeah,
here. Who would I have reached out to
yeah,
but to this
exactly.
guy who was providing a ton of service to the community? Like he would be my go-to. I would reach out to. So I think when people are using social media for that kind of thing, Jake, I think that's kind of next level on letting people know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, 100%. Like I absolutely love Brian's series on the King Law DNA, where he just kind of talks about, different aspects of how the firm is run, their onboarding program, training, what their core values are. Like just kind of like this behind the scenes, because it lets you know, is this again somebody as a client that I would want to potentially work with, as an attorney, somebody that I would feel comfortable making a recommendation for their services. It really is like this a real showing of who this person is. And then when you get into like kind of particular interest, I think that the most fascinating people on LinkedIn are people that are just kind of sharing little tidbits about their daily life, 5 times. And then like the sixth time is like, hey, this is a, area of law that I handle, and this is how it worked out for this particular person, or this is, a nuanced issue that came up in court today. But it's kind of like I think, Gary V describes it as the jab, 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 right hook. Like this is this is
Yep.
don't always be asking, and standing out in the crowd to me is only possible if you are doing something different. So as opposed to trying to get seen by 10,000 people, try to connect with one. The most the best example of this in my personal life was we were down in Disneyland with all of the kids, some years back. There's tens of thousands of people in the park, and it was a Sunday. And I'm walking around in my Panthers jersey, and there's like one other guy that like I see in this, sea of people that's wearing a Panthers jersey. I go over to him like, how are we doing? What's the score right now? So we have like a 3-minute conversation. It's like the only reason I did that is because there was a shared value, that being the Panthers, that wasn't the same as everybody else in that sea of people. And I think the more you can do that online by sharing what your interests are, yeah, not everybody's going to resonate with that, but the people that do, it will really be like a pull, as opposed to just being like, oh, this is another criminal defense lawyer in a sea of criminal defense lawyers.
Yes. I love that. And I love that example, the finding the way to connect with someone. I mean, we we all experience more in common with each other than we think we do. And so we look for that commonality, that brings us together. And another thing about doing this, like the way Brian is doing it, is it's it's you get a lot of bang for your buck,
Mm,
because like his DNA series, that's attractive for clients to learn more about him. Also attractive for referral sources to
hmm.
learn more about him. But it's also a great recruiting tool,
Yes.
right? So when you have these, I've used the word before, but these holistic things, in the way that you think strategically and goal oriented, yes, I'm spending the time to create this DNA series, but the bang I'm getting is marketing, relationship building, and recruiting.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Yeah, I think you, it's so interesting because I think it's one of the ways that you can maintain a larger referral network is by kind of having a bigger presence on social media because you can to some extent have a conversation with, 1,000 people, even though you're not having, there's certain people that I follow on LinkedIn that I feel like I'm friends with and they don't know me. Like that's just because I'm soaking in all of their content. I'm absorbing everything. So I have a relationship with that person even though they couldn't, pick me out in a lineup of people. And I do think that you have to have that like one-on-one connection with referral sources in order to have like kind of the best mutual relationship. But I do think social media sometimes does like change the game in terms of scale of how to network. And so on that front, for people that are kind of beyond the like initial stage of trying to build, 5 referrals, 10 referrals. You talked about, having a system for contact and really looking at your referral network as something to maintain contact with on a very like strategic level with these kind of point of contacts. But in terms of maintaining a large network, are there anything else that you could think of that would be helpful in terms of kind of maintaining a larger referral network?
I think the more you do to systematize your
Hmm.
practice, right? And that goes for intake, it goes for, your HR policies, and it goes for, building your referral source. But, being strategic and intentional. But also using your calendar as a tool, not only to get your client work done or to
Hmm.
schedule meetings, but actually building in time in your calendar to attend events. I think of all the money that people probably spend and waste when they register for every event out there and every CLE event out there, and then they're busy on the day of, and they're like, "Oh well, I'll get a manuscript later," or, "It was just a lunch. It's not a big deal." When you start adding up those dollars, one, it probably is a big deal. But um, it would be much better to narrow your focus
Yes.
and to actually pick 5 things in the course of the year where you'll really show up. And so do that by building your calendar around it. And so that means not just putting noon to 1 for lunch, right? But if I leave my morning so unstructured that at 10 till 12, I get a client crisis call, I can't walk out the door. But if I've built into my schedule that 30 minutes before lunch, I'm going to get out of this office, I'm going to put my phone on, an out of office message. I'm going to let people know when they can be back in touch with me. I'm going to leave word with my receptionist. I'm going to get myself to the event 10 minutes early so I can say hello to people. The running in and the running out and the not being prepared when you get there almost makes the event a waste of time,
It
right?
does. Yeah.
You
100%.
probably would have been better off just sitting at your desk and getting work done. So block your calendar and give yourself that 2 hours so that you can prepare going in. Your mind is clear on the way over. You're thinking of your news to share. You're thinking of, what your goals are. And then give yourself time after lunch ends that you can walk the room and work the room a little bit. Um, so often we act like we're firemen, right? We're rushing in to put out the fire and we did a great job. And at the end of the day, we're exhausted
Yeah.
from that. Managing your calendar better can help you with that.
Yeah, and I think that when even using that like fireman example, which I love because I always like think of the running around putting out fires and that's just part of like it seems like the nature of being a trial lawyer, somebody that's solving other people's problems. But firemen go to trainings, and when they're in trainings, they're not like all the time just rushing out to address fires again, right? Like there's a plan in place of other people are on call during this time to deal with emergencies that might come up in this moment so that we don't have to cancel in the middle of this training program the development that's going on. And so I think for lawyers, it is one of those things where I feel like CLEs are or professional development programs or networking opportunities are kind of like a placeholder that can be immediately moved if anything comes up. Like, I mean, it doesn't even have to be urgent. It literally is like, my client needs a limited driving privilege, that they called about 15 minutes ago and it needs to happen right now. Or, again, you get a traffic consult that came through. And so I think you really do have to sit down and prioritize and also know yourself in terms of how do you kind of like put your best self forward into a learning opportunity. And I think I lied to myself for a long time that I could do online CLEs, I could do online trainings and get the same value out of it. And it's just like incredibly disproportionate in terms of like where my focus is, how much energy I'm putting into it. You get on a CLE with 50 people and there's 4 people with their cameras on, and it's like that means there's only 4 people learning. That's
That's right.
there's nobody. This is a group of 4 that you're a part of, and so with networking, I think it can be that same mentality which you just described so well. Is like, I have all of these appointments. I'm like getting off the phone as I'm going into this thing. I have to like rush out 10 minutes early, and it's like it almost would have been better if I hadn't come in the first place, because it looks, you almost put up an appearance of looking like you shouldn't have even been there in the first place. So I think that that's so important. I feel like if you're going to sign up for something, treat it like you're on secured leave when that day comes around. Like it should be something where you just have that 100% like blocked out in terms of time frame.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And to take that, fireman analogy, one step further, the fire station is busy all the time, right? Whether there's a fire or
Yeah.
not. Because when the bell goes off, the truck is ready and the hoses are in place
Yeah.
and the boots are by the door and the uniform is right there. Like when the bell goes off, they don't go, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And if we would get ourselves into that better practice, that when the client calls and is screaming, we don't go, let's scream with them.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, oh, we're the calming force here. And, you can look around the bar lunch or the courtroom and see which lawyer has their hair on fire all the time. Everybody gets an emergency, right? That you just got to power through. But some people do sort of project better through those crises. And I think it's some of it's probably their personality, but some of it's they spent time getting the fire station in order,
Yeah.
and they can the tools are there for them to handle it better.
Yeah, 100%. I am definitely somebody that, I mean, this has been a real learning curve on my end because I always overestimate how much I can get done in a day. I've got, my wife will look at my calendar and she'll be like, there's no way you're going to be back by that time. I mean, there's just no, you like the, I don't know why you're not building in. If you're, 30 minutes away and you haven't included like any time for travel, there's a problem here. Like, you gotta figure this out. And there's, yeah, definitely been times in practice where I am literally like running in full suit, from the courthouse to my car or back to the office. And it's just one of those things that if you're not, again, knowing yourself, I think, first of all, again, for me, some people may very well be able to learn great by, CLE from their office. They don't have to incur the cost of traveling somewhere. It's like I can soak this in maybe on my schedule. And so I know when I can do it, I'll do it in 2 hour blocks. But for me, it's just a recognition that if I'm doing something virtually, I'm probably soaking in like 10% of the information, on my schedule. If I'm not careful about my schedule, I'll never make it to that networking event because even though it's on my calendar, I literally have not built the time to travel to it and from it. And so knowing yourself is also like a big part of really trying to maximize that time.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed.
In terms of, just kind of along that like same systematic framework. And maybe this is kind of like a good place to close out the conversation in terms of kind of best practices, whether it's kind of, best overarching practices or even like just kind of very specific. Here's a client that I worked with that did, X. What are some of the best networking habits and or like individual practices that you've seen with your clients?
I think this has a lot to do with sort of personality type as well. But I often encourage lawyers to set aside time during the course of the week to do some marketing task. Because if we wait for that free spot on the calendar, it's never going to come. So, maybe at the end of maybe you get through Monday, which is sort of your oh my gosh, what's going to happen day. And,
The fireman day.
that's right. And so, 20 minutes before you head out of the office, you know, take a good look at your calendar for the week and see like what opportunities do I have to network? Are there some events I'm going to? Let me tighten up my calendar around those so that I'm better prepared. Because if you take any of these tips to heart, it's hard to just dive into them like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to start networking with goals. Well, somewhere along the way, you're going to need to build 30 minutes or an hour into your schedule to look at the calendar, determine which of the events you're going to go to, and to set the goals. And if you want the goals to really be strategic, you probably need to think a little bit about your firm-wide plan. So it sounds like all or nothing, but that's the furthest thing that I mean. I really do mean do it just one bite at a time. But before you take the first bite, give yourself 30 minutes to an hour at the beginning of this week to really plan what the rest of the week's networking will look like. And then, maybe Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, you're just frazzled, you're done, you're exhausted. maybe use that as an opportunity to reflect on the week and send out 3 emails to people who were impactful to you that week. John, thanks for, running down the hall and, tapping me on the shoulder in courtroom 1 to say courtroom 3 judge was calling my name, or, thanks to uh, whoever and whatever. But use that sort of natural, I'm tired, I'm winding down, I'd like to begin separating from work a little bit, and throw some gratitude in there. These are marketing emails, but they're also a moment of reflection and gratitude. So sort of work with your natural clock, work within your calendar, make your calendar a true tool, and then set those small goals every week, what you want to accomplish. Um, I think learning to think about networking and referral networking specifically is building a pipeline. You cannot do it when your calendar is empty, because that typically means you have no work. And so it's too late to
Yeah.
network for work when you have no work. You've got to constantly keep the pipeline full. And I think that's something a lot of litigators really struggle with, is they say, "Oh, I finished 3 big trials. So now, Camille, tell me how to go get a client tomorrow." Doesn't work that way. You got to
Yeah.
be building it every day so that that pipeline stays full.
I love that. I think that, setting aside that time, it's definitely something that guests regularly talking about building your business, working on marketing, have referenced as, setting aside that time to work on your business instead of in it. And anytime that somebody, like kind of gives this vibe of like, well, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to, I've got all of these clients, I'm overbooked. It's like, you're the absolute person that needs to be building in this time, because if you're too busy to set aside that time, it means that you're not getting all the right kind of cases that you should, right? Like, I mean, you're putting you're putting yourself out there in too many different spaces. You don't have a good system for getting help on board, and you haven't had the ability to like separate yourself from the process and recognize where somebody else might be able to pitch in, so that you're not constantly, operating at, 150% energy level. There's got to be some of that built-in reflection for improvement. So yeah, I think any if the excuse is I don't have time to do that, then you need to make the time more than anybody else listening, because that's really going to be what allows you to kind of have a better quality of life or grow your business. One of the two.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Camille, I can't thank you enough for spending the time talking through referral networking. I think it's such an important part of building a business designed to last, and just really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom with audience.
I've had so much fun today. It's always fun to talk to people who get as enthused as I do about networking. So this was great. Thanks for inviting me to participate.
Absolutely.